the Fiasco Sports NBA season previews. I'm Matt Sampson. Joining me again, thanks for coming, Chris Bosh.
No worries.
Miami Heat. We're getting towards the pointy end of things in the Eastern Conference. Miami Heat came oh so close.
They did.
Not really last season, but you know, they made the finals. How do you rate the Heat season last year?
Well, last year I think it's kind of epitomised by the way that kind of they went around it with LeBron, and that whole saga kind of drew to a close in what was kind of a little bit of a bitter end for what I thought should have probably been a three-peat of a dynasty, but they came up against a really good Spurs team and understandably lost. But I think that for the Heat, I think they achieved the goal of what was going to happen when they brought the Big Three in 2010. They got the 2 titles. I mean, they probably would have wanted 4 because they made all 4 of the finals, but I mean, they got 2 titles at least. I think it was a success. And I think it was kind of a little bit of a fitting way that it went down a bit, because I think that everybody kind of wanted to see them lose after kind of the run that they'd had and how people thought they kind of bought success, which is kind of what you have to do in the NBA anyway. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think it was fitting that it's kind of gone down like this, and now it's a completely new season coming up.
No, I agree entirely. I think it went down the best way it possibly could have gone for everyone involved. I mean, the first year, everyone hated how well, not everyone, but a lot of people hated how they came together, and they fittingly lost in the finals in the worst possible way, which made a lot of people happy. Then they went back to back. So, you know, the LeBron supporters were happy, general basketball fans were happy, haters were even more upset, and then they blew apart, sort of got steamrolled by a team that would not have lost to anyone last year. We have to say that Spurs team was one of just the most impressive finalists we've seen in recent years. So we got a little bit of everything out of this team, which as someone who doesn't barrack for either side that's played in any side that's played in the finals in the last 30, 40 years.
I know how you feel. I know how you feel.
As a casual observer, I love the theatre of it all. I love that LeBron's gone back to Cleveland. I love how he left and how they pumped it up, and it really just it's part of the explosion that the NBA has experienced in the last sort of half a decade, that it's just such great theatre, I think is the best word to describe it. But I agree, I think it was a success. Only 3 franchises has ever made 4 consecutive finals. So that is an achievement in itself. A lot of people like to think of Jordan and the 6 rings and 3-peats, and that's the standard. But that is not the standard, that's the exception, not the rule.
Exactly.
So it's hard to. Everyone's different, you know. LeBron James isn't Michael Jordan. And more importantly, he isn't on the Heat anymore. So we should talk about Miami. They went last season 54-28.
Good season.
Second in the East, so they were a little bit off the pace from the Pacers. I think that's like the 3rd unintentional pun I've made, and then caught myself.
You're on fire.
Mid-sentence. I'm rather embarrassed by that one, to be honest. I've said earlier, you weren't here, but I accidentally said the Rockets were going to rocket up the standing, and then
that's really impressive.
Dig a hole halfway through afterwards.
That's really impressive. Bit of editing. That's fine.
Offensively, 12th in the league. Defensively, 5th in the league. That's only points per game, though. Their defensive efficiency was also outside the top 10, which makes it the first time in the Big Three era that they were outside the top 10 in both categories. So a little worrying for Miami last season there. The strength, LeBron James. What more can we say about the champion?
Exactly, I know.
And the weakness was obviously 4 straight finals, throwing an Olympics for LeBron, All-Star weekends for everyone, 7-game series along the way. It was a pretty intense schedule for them in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, also throw in the fact that the depth was a bit of a worry as well. I mean, they had terrific players on the court when you started the game, but when they had to kind of give LeBron, give Wade, give Bosh a rest, they really had to go to some players that weren't really all that proven, to be honest. And I think that, like you said, but that brutal workload as well. I mean, I know the players are campaigning for longer All-Star weekends so they can have a little bit of a break, you know, and all the things that come with being a star player. I think that they kind of had to expect it was coming, but in the end, I don't think anyone deserves to have that put on a team. But if there was a team that was going to happen to, it probably would have been Miami.
That's it. And they were rather, like you said, the depth was an issue because they were rather top heavy. I mean, you have those 3 massive contracts. They're bringing in guys like Michael Beasley and Greg Oden and sort of expecting them to be somebody that they're not and turn it around. But, you know, looking at what they've done this off-season, I think now depth is actually a strength for this Miami team, which is why I have them ranked 4th overall in the East, which, you know, might surprise a lot of people, but I don't think that this team has fallen off all that much. No. I mean, you look, they added Dwyane Wade. Josh McRoberts is a hugely underrated guy. He's an excellent passer, decent outside shooter. He's going to stretch the floor, fill in those front court positions. Danny Granger, former All-Star, and then Shannon Brown is not a great basketballer anymore, but will bring some excitement to the team.
Well, that's true.
Do you think that they've compensated well for obviously losing LeBron James, the best player in the league?
I thought that they could have done as well as they could have. I mean, because LeBron James, who's going to replace him?
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, I don't think the Miami Heat fell off at all. When I was going to come in and say exactly the same thing you just said, I think they're going to they're going to get a home final series to start off the Eastern Conference playoffs. And they haven't really lost so much in the fact that this is still a very good team, because people kind of forget how good Dwyane Wade and Chris Bosh are when they're by themselves. Because I know that the few games that LeBron didn't play, over last year, or for however many games he hasn't played in the Big Three era, they still haven't played that badly without him.
Exactly.
And it's not as if Chris Bosh is a bad player. And I mean, obviously, Dwyane Wade's health is going to be a real concern, obviously, but the replacements they've got are really serviceable. Like Dwyane Wade, like he was a fantastic player, and there's not to say that he still isn't, especially if he gets given the game time to do it. And I think that between Josh McRoberts and Chris Bosh, it's a really interesting fit to see how they're going to work, because they are two very good outside players. Is there going to be much of an inside presence? Are they going to try to just spread the floor out and just make it a complete sort of isolation sort of offense? It's going to be very interesting.
That's it. And they also have the best player in the league in the Birdman. Obviously,
how can I forget?
Obviously, as a fan of the body art, as elderly people like to say, the Birdman has been a favourite of mine ever since the Denver days. And while I'm not, I don't have the cojones to pull off a mohawk or the ability to grow a hillbilly beard. I'm a big component of this front court. I think it's really interesting. They've got some inside outside, and McRoberts is really going to help that. I want to talk about as well James Ennis heading to Miami, which as an Australian NBA fan I disliked him quite a large amount as his Perth Wildcats took down our Adelaide 36ers in the finals. To see a guy come to the NBL and then spend 1 year here and then get accepted back into the NBA community is something that I am really excited about, because we've seen now second round draft picks, DeAndre Daniels, McRae coming over and playing in the NBL. So I want to see him succeed, because I want to see more NBA talent come to Australia and play. And also Shabazz Napier, one of my favourite college players in recent years, and probably the harshestly done by player in the draft, being LeBron James' favourite player, drafted by the Heat, and then LeBron goes to Cleveland. And also in the new 2K15 trailer, there's one clip of Shabazz Napier in there, and it's him being dunked on by none other than LeBron James. So
the sweet irony.
The
sweet irony.
Poor Shabazz. He's got 2 titles.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, it's not as if he was a bad player at Connecticut, that's for sure. He wasn't the best player, but like you said, when you talk about winners, you can't really go past this guy at the collegiate level. That's it.
It's going to be a really interesting battle for the point guard position between Mario Chalmers, Norris Cole, and Shabazz Napier to see which one of those guys sort of breaks through. I mean, none of them are all-star caliber players, but they're all serviceable point guards, and I think they're all going to get an opportunity throughout the year. But speaking of opportunities, these guys will be taking the bulk of them as they play the most minutes of anyone, I'm predicting. Pretty simply put together lineup here. I mean, Dwyane Wade, he plays himself into the lineup. Chris Bosh signed that monster contract.
Exactly.
Dang, you don't bring him across to sit him on the bench, do you? My man, Josh McRoberts, they say all he does is make highlight plays. And Mario Chalmers, the whipping boy of the NBA.
Exactly, unfortunately for him.
Who of these guys do you think has to perform at their peak for Miami to be that 4th seed I've got them slotted in at the moment?
I'm going to say Dwyane Wade.
Interesting.
Because I think that, I don't need to see any more out of Chris Bosh. Dwyane Wade's already been, well and truly enough to be Hall of Fame sort of guy. I think that they know what to expect out of him, especially kind of with the situations going on with his knees at the moment. I think that they need to fill that 3 spot. And I think that that's kind of what their offense revolved around. Obviously, with LeBron, I mean, he could have played any position, but Dwyane Wade's going to come in now, and he has got to try to be the mediator on what is a very interesting offense. Like you talked about the guards, like you're talking about maybe whether Mario Chalmers is going to start, but if people like Norris Cole or Shabazz Napier, you know, they're attacking point guards. Dwyane Wade certainly is a very good offensive player. You've got to now see where Luol Deng is going to fit into the scheme of things on offense, because maybe if you can shut down the guards, you might have to go to Luol Deng as sort of that third option up near the top.
Yeah.
It's going to be very, very interesting because he's going to have to slide into both situations to kind of fill in a gap that maybe he might not be able to fill.
Yeah, and Luol Deng is a winner. I mean, he had that little blip where he went to Cleveland. It was a really tough breakup between Chicago and Luol. I mean, I know Tom Thibodeau took it extremely hardly because Luol Deng was one of his biggest soldiers on the court. He'd play him bulk minutes constantly, and Luol would just respond and play. 40 minutes a game, he doesn't care. He gets out there, he grinds, he plays super defense on elite players. He's a reasonable scorer. He's going to be a good glue guy around the guy that I have slotted in as the most important player, which is Chris Bosh. I think obviously they've committed all that money to him. He showed he wanted to stay. He could have gone to Houston. We saw, obviously, he loves South Beach. We're going to talk about Chris Bosh birthday parties as a spoiler a bit later. I think he's going to be a 2010 guy. He's going to be Toronto Chris Bosh. A lot of people say he doesn't have it. I think they are all stupid. Chris Bosh is an amazing player who has stepped out his shooting game. He can hit threes now at a respectable clip. He's not a knockdown shooter. But he's going to lead this offense. Well, because like you said, Dwyane Wade his health is questionable. Speaking of Dwyane Wade, though, looking at what he did last season, 54 games. Does that worry you at all that he was resting on back-to-backs and his knees are obviously worrisome?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that now that the pressure of a championship is off, I reckon they might even continue to rest him more, to be honest, and that worries me a lot. I mean, he's been incredibly serviceable for this franchise, and I think he's done things for it that I don't think anyone can understate. But now is slowly coming to the time where he's going to have to think about hanging them up. And it's disappointing because I think everyone loves watching Dwyane Wade play. But 54 games really concerns me, especially when you're in a championship caliber roster. And you think that maybe you want your best players out on the court to try to get that #1 seed potentially. Now that the pressure's off a little bit, and maybe they're not expected to be the team that they were last year, he could even take less minutes here to try to prolong a career that probably I think that it's not worth prolonging. You've already had such a tremendous career that you might as well just go out hard for it for 1 year and call it quits rather than maybe hold on for 3 or 4 years playing 20, 30 games a year.
Yeah, see, I think that Miami got it completely wrong in resting him for games instead of taking the Spurs model and just cutting back on minutes, which I think is what they might do this year. Obviously, if his injuries flare up, he's going to be forced to miss games, but I think they can manage his minutes a lot more effectively. I'm like you in thinking that I obviously think he's still a fantastic player. I don't think he's going to drop off the face of the earth now, but I think there's going to be a steep curve that we see his production deteriorate because you look at the numbers we have on the screen. Obviously, he's not an excellent three-point shooter, which as players get older and they lose their athleticism, you can sort of reinvent yourself as an outside player. Dwyane Wade was so successful in getting to the rim, drawing fouls, being reckless in his drives. I mean, that's how they beat Dallas in 2006, was pretty much just Dwyane going at the rim, getting free throws, knocking them down, and just being an unstoppable force. He's otherwise a really great efficient player. He's got an excellent PER, excellent field goal percentage, still at roughly 20 points per game, you know, decent rebounder, decent assist contributor. Dwyane Wade is going to be a key factor to this team. I've highlighted him just because I don't know how much he's going to play. If he's going to play all 82 games and come out and shock the world, or if he's going to play 25 games. So it comes down to his health, and like you said, it's do you just push through and try and go for a title and think, well, if I just blow out my knee and call it quits in 2 years, or do I try and nurse myself through another 6 years? So this is going to be a really interesting situation to monitor. But before we talk too much about injuries and sadness of watching a great leave the game, I want to ask you the Believe the Hypothetical, which comes to us, of course, via the guys at Believe the Hype. Check out their podcast, great stuff.
Absolutely.
All their social media stuff's on the screen. Go give it a follow, a like. Rate the podcast on iTunes as well. That helps the boys out. But they want to say the only must-watch night on the Miami Heat's calendar will be Chris Bosh's birthday party. Chris, do you agree with this?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I would give an arm and a leg to be invited to one of those things.
Yeah.
I mean, did you hear about some of the stuff that he did at his 30th?
Oh, jeez.
Like, extraordinary. Out
of this world.
Exactly. That's the sort of thing that you'd want to get Snapchats from. Like, you'd want to get Snapchats and be like, I missed that party and I'm sad about it.
Yeah, I mean, entertainment everywhere. We rented out an entire baseball stadium. We had Bone Thugs and Harmony playing. I mean, circus performers. Chris Bosh is the most interesting man in NBA basketball.
Oh, without a doubt.
I mean, that's 30. That's sort of a milestone, but I'm not going to hold him to milestones. 31 has to be one better than 30, doesn't it? Surely. I mean, what do you expect to see from Chris Bosh this year?
You know, I reckon.
Birthday-wise,
I reckon he's going to try to quash this whole dinosaur theory and just have a massive Jurassic Park sort of themed party.
Okay.
And he's just going to kind of steer into the skid.
He's just going to own it?
Exactly. I think he's just going to steer into the skid. I think he's past that stage where he's just going to try to fight it.
Yeah.
I reckon just a massive Jurassic Park sort of theme. Have it in some forest. He'd probably afford to buy a forest. Just have it somewhere out there and just kind of steer into the skid a bit and let everyone have a little bit of fun.
See, I think he rented out a baseball stadium for 30. I think he needs to take it to the next level. I think we're building towards eventually Chris Bosh's 50th in space. Because I feel like in about 20 years, that's going to be an affordable thing for a successful NBA player such as he just signed that monster contract. Surely that's enough money to get you to space. But I think we're building towards, before then, maybe renting out a private island.
Sure.
In Miami, just off the coast.
Sense.
I'm sure there's something there. We're going to have the Chris Bosh Island, you know. Bone Thugs and Harmony, we can go another step up. Maybe we can get Kanye or someone
Boys
involved.
to Men.
Boys to... I was going with Rick Ross. Rick Ross is a Miami native,
That's
so,
true.
you know, we went completely different ways. Maybe we could have Boys to Men, Rick Ross combo.
How would that work? Anyway, that would just be...
interesting.
If anyone could make it work, it'd be Chris Bosh.
I'd like to see them switch roles, actually. Have Rick Ross singing songs about breakups, and then Boys to Men just sing about selling crack.
Yeah, fair enough. That would be fantastic.
Chris Bosh's 50th is going to be in space. You heard it here first.
I'm on board with that, actually.
Yeah, I want an invite. I want to be involved.
I want to too. I'm going to space for Chris Bosh.
Yeah, well, they're sending people to Mars. Yeah, in 2022 or something. Maybe Chris Bosh is going to go to Mars and just, as you know, they've got like doctors, they've got engineers, whatever they need. They can have Chris Bosh. He can be like the minister of partying on Mars.
Oh, just a light-hearted bit of fun. Yeah. Or if they need something off a top shelf.
If you can't have fun with Chris Bosh, you can't have fun with anybody.
Anyone. There's a problem with you.
So we got to wrap it up though. I think the invites will be in the mail, hopefully.
I hope so.
We've got to get off to the party. But before we head off, 30 seconds on the clock, buzzer beater prediction. What do you expect from Miami this year?
We said it before, but I still think fourth in the East. I think people are underselling them a little bit, and this team is still very good. It's just they're without the best player in the world. And I think that they might go 2 rounds into the Eastern Conference. I still don't think they have enough to compete now with the top of the East, especially in Cleveland or Chicago. But I still think that they're a very, very good team. They could surprise a lot of people. They could even take like a 3rd spot maybe. But I mean, and maybe if we talk about maybe what their floor is going to be this year, I still think that they'd still finish 6th or 7th at worst. They'll still make playoffs. Yeah, I expect them to finish 4th in the East because I feel like losing LeBron James is just puts them down a tier, which is still a home court advantage in the finals team. I mean, they're not going to go from 1st to 15th. They're not. It's not like the Pacers that were just completely gutted and lost their 2 best players. It's they've replaced an MVP with an all-star. So they've gone from a championship caliber team to a playoff caliber team. Exactly. So I don't expect them to make the conference finals. I think that's got to be Cleveland and Chicago. So expect them to make the 1st round, breeze through that 2nd round, maybe breeze through that. It's going to be up in the air, but it's going to be a fun season, to say the least. I mean, we've got Chris Bosh as a #1 option, plus he has a birthday coming up. So if anything, that's going to be interesting to watch. Miami Heat, not as good as last year, but still a very good basketball team. Absolutely. We have to wrap it up though. This has been Fiasco Sports NBA season previews with Chris Guscott, Matt Sampson. Check out Believe the Hype, check out Sporties at the Yarka Description below is where they can find the info, isn't it, Chris? Yeah, it's a lot of fun to do this on camera actually. Enjoy that. We need to put something there. We'll have an overlay on screen, maybe. We'll see you next time.